Good afternoon, Miss Fenty. My name is Anthonia Silvia Rosalyne PC from class B. Right now, I want to presentation Pecha Kucha and explain my favorite books. King Frost told the woman who was sent away by her stepmother, and unexpected she met the Snow King, and the king knew that she was such a good girl that he gave the child a gold present, and her stepsister was also sent away by her mother for gold. But the child did not have a good personality, and eventually the child is changed to Frozen. Swallow talked about a girl named Odette who was turned into a swan by a witch, until she met the prince, and the prince asked her to dance with him. But the witch won't, because if Odette and the prince fall in love, then the curse will be broken, so he made his child like Odette. And it got so noisy that finally the witch lost, and Odette lived happily with the prince. Rapunzel is a child who was scared by a witch, until one day the prince came and he saw Rapunzel with her long hair, and he wanted to see Rapunzel, but caught by the witch and made the prince blind, and the witch died. Rapunzel found the prince, and she screamed, so he knew it. It was Rapunzel, and the prince was no longer blind, and they were happy. The brave tin soldier about a soldier with only one leg. He loved a ballerina, but a goblin blocked him, until finally the soldier disappeared and had unusual adventures. And he came back and he found the goblins, but unfortunately he fell to the fireplace, and the ballerina was dead, so she threw herself into the fireplace too. 10 ways to write well is about tips and tricks when we want to write. Why am I reading this book? Because I usually like to write storybooks. So I am so excited to read this book because the book gives me a new lesson, so I can write well again. And Love Online about a love triangle, which is where Scott's ambition is to make Sarah his girlfriend, but there's Jisung who likes Sarah too. Until Scott does the sly thing with Sarah and Jisung, so Sarah and Jisung got into a fight. But at the end of Scott's story was honest with them, and finally Sarah and Jisung got close while Scott was put away. Lost thought of a group of children wandering in the forest during a snowstorm, and eventually they get lost until they find an empty house, and they spend the night there until the next morning. The next day, they heard someone knocking, and they thought it was the bad guy, but it was their coach, and at the end they saw a bear. Road trip thought about the 4 kids who were on a road trip to the music festival, but Yichun doesn't like road trip because she is worried about the vehicle. To summarize their love story, and Ichu is with his friends looking for help, but his friends are so excited from the hot weather. Zombies in Tokyo, about a game that determines our own destiny in the story. The story is so fun and exciting to read because I like the story, and the story is different from the story I read. It's just so exciting, and I recommend this book. And Culture Shock Japan tells about the writer of culture shock in Japan, such as his culture different from his country, like Japanese manners, about workhouse different from his country, about the food and other commonplace things in Japan. And The 3 Little Pigs is a fairy tale I used to listen and read as a kid, and I'm reading it again this time. The book tells about the 3 little pigs that the wolves are after, and at the end, the wolf was defeated by the 3 pigs because they had a way to keep the wolf from eating them. The beautiful game about a young girl who first she was a player with her team, but she was offered to be a model in Milan. At first, but then she received but because she might be exciting when she's done her training and the event is already going on, he finally feels uneasy because it's not his passion. The hacker told a college student who didn't like his lecture because his lecture didn't give him a good grade, and then he hacked his lecture's file and he changed his grade to a good one, and by his own fault for telling the story, then almost one college knew about him could change his grade to good one, and eventually he was caught and arrested by the police. Trust, I love this story because it's very interesting story, and it has a plot twist that because evil is their closest, and I love this book because its language is very easy to understand. And I learned that you shouldn't trust others because you're not necessarily a good person. Gun. The story is very tense and makes me wonder who might have done it. It's a good story and it makes me wonder how it goes, but from this story, I've learned that we must respect those who love us, lest we make them sick because of what we did. And Dog Wash. It's about a dog that likes to get in the mud when it's raining, and the dog is very active until his master turned to his friend for help so that this her friends for help so that this dog could wash and clean. But the dog wouldn't until the master set up a dog bath. It is very exciting. Lizard grandmother about one lizard which disturbed with another animal, so the other animal went to abuse him too and said there was his grandmother. He was by the river and he went out and found it, but it turns out it's not lizard but crocodile, and crocodile bit his tail and lizard said. The tale of Johnny told Mouse about the mouse coming from the village, but when he entered the box, he was in a strange room, and there was another mouse there said he was in town, and these mouse are very uncomfortable in the city. And finally he returned to the village, and in the village he was reunited with the mouse from the city. Little Chicken, in this book I get that we don't believe what people say because we don't know if he's good or he's bad. As in the ending of the story, since they all believe in the wolves, they end up being eaten by wolf in the cave. It's sad ending. Sleeping Beauties is a princess story. I don't know why I read this book because I watched this movie at Disney, but this story taught me that never misbehave with another person lest that person hate us, because this weak witch has a grudge against the king, so she cursed the Aurora. That's all from me, and thank you.